It's nice to be back, and lovely to be here with Linda and Courtney. The development of this panel, I just want to give a little bit of insight into, because it was actually a sweet kind of community moment as well. This is a hybrid event. We've been experimenting a little bit, creating more panels like this. And when we first had this panel, we were like, I don't know if we kind of converge. I don't know if this is working. But what we did is we jumped on a Zoom call, and we figured it out. We understood that this is kind of the complete picture of community-led growth, from programmatic side to the data side. We're really telling the bigger picture of, like, if you have a program going, how can you go into the data intelligently and tell the story and really show the picture? And so I want to just go into, with a little bit of an intro, let's learn a little bit more about you. Who you are, where you're from, and also the pathway into community for you, because it's so different. We all have these interesting stories about how we got into community. I'm going to hand it off to Linda. We want to hear a little bit about you.
All right. Hey, everyone. It's so exciting to be here. My name's Linda. I'm the co-founder and CEO of CommonRoom. We build an intelligent community growth platform, and we work with incredible customers like HubSpot and Figma and Notion and Atlassian, some really incredible community-led growth organizations. I encourage you guys to come check out our booth, meet some CommonRoomies, our team, and get a demo. Really quickly, before we talk more about what CommonRoom is, I actually got into community through developer relations and developer marketing. And maybe some of you guys are kind of in that developer community space. But what happened was in 2018, I was leading developer marketing and product marketing for a fast-growing set of services at Amazon Web Services called serverless computing. And while I was there, what we realized was that these serverless was growing 300% year over year, not because of a sales-led motion. Our sales reps weren't out there selling our services. It was really through building developer community. This notion that you could put something of value out there, whether it was a forum or engaging on social media or a Slack group, which quickly ballooned to 60,000 developers, putting education out there. And Courtney will be talking a lot more about education as a fundamental pillar of community-led growth. So really enabling our developers via a community-led motion to find our services, get educated, get hands-on, and ultimately bring it into their organization. And it seemed like it should have been a win-win for our developers and our business. Makes a lot of sense. Let's go and empower these users to adopt and to discover and to convert. But what I found was that there was a fundamental lack of management tooling, right? We were trying to service our developers across all these different touch points, whether it was training and certification or meetups or social media engagement or our forums and our Slack groups. And not being able to tie all of these individual programs back to ultimate business outcomes, right? Who are these developers? Are they existing customers? Are they potential customers? Are they converting at a faster pace? Are they adopting in a healthier way? When we couldn't measure these things, what ends up happening is, A, you're not giving your community of users the experience that they deserve, and then B, as someone who owns these programs, and Savannah talked about budgets, if you can't tie it back to business outcomes, it's really hard to be in front of your executive leadership asking for more resources, right? Because the KPIs just aren't tangible. And so I knew that this was a problem I wanted to go solve, because I saw community-led growth as truly the future of how software will be evaluated and adopted. And I wanted to go and build a platform that really helps community leaders shine a light into what's going on in their community, create a better experience for their community of practitioners, and then ultimately be leaders of their business. And there's some stats I'll share later on some of the incredible ways in which community fundamentally drives businesses forward. But I'll stop there and turn it over to Courtney.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction to yourself. We had the opportunity to meet actually last week as well at Inbound for HubSpot, which it's great to be sharing a stage with you today and talk about community-led growth. I'm Courtney. I'm the director of Hubspot Academy at HubSpot. HubSpot Academy is the learning resource for HubSpot users, customers, partners, and our intention is really well connected with community-led growth. But how I sort of ended up with HubSpot Academy and focused on community was I was a new HubSpot employee, been at HubSpot 7 years and started taking certification courses to help understand, not only our products and our services, but also inbound and content marketing and SEO best practices. And I had an opportunity to talk with a lot of different folks about that, our other learners in the community, other folks who were engaging with the certification courses, and started to really find that connection for myself. I came from the nonprofit world, which is small. Being able to connect with people, learn from others was so important. And so when I came to HubSpot and found HubSpot Academy, it was such a natural progression in there. And for HubSpot Academy, we've got 35 plus certification courses in the market. We're doing that content in 6+ languages. And we have a huge community around the world of over 400,000 professionally certified users. And the way in which we want to engage with them is being able to make sure they can share those learnings across their different companies, their different industries. And by doing so, we can really get learners to learn from one another. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today with community-led growth, that connection. And last week at Inbound, we were talking a lot about the age of the disconnected customer, the age of disconnection. There's so much information out there. How do we make sure we can have connections and have organic interactions and make sure that we're together? And HubSpot Academy is really focused on bringing that network for HubSpot together so we can attract, engage, and delight HubSpot customers across the globe.
Nice. They're so great, aren't they? What I want to do first is actually just kind of define it. What is community-led growth? I'm going to hand it over to Linda first, and we'll follow up with Courtney. But yeah, what is it?
Yeah, great question. I think community-led growth is probably a term that we've all heard recently. It's increasingly a buzzword, right? I think at Inbound, it was one of the biggest themes of HubSpot's keynote last week. And for us, when we talk about community-led growth at CommonRoom, we're really referring to an approach to orienting your go-to-market that is focused on creating a passionate user base of product champions, product users, product advocates who are going to power up your product adoption and really drive your business forward. And so when we think about programs like education, it's such an incredibly important pillar of a community-led growth approach, because it really is about how do you get those individuals to level up, to advance their career, to learn, and then spread that education to the next set of HubSpot users. But also they serve as incredibly important advocates internally at the companies that they work at as internal advocates. And so community-led growth is really about, in the age of the networked user, like we're all more networked than ever before. We find out about the tools that we want to use from our friends on the internet, but most importantly from strangers on the internet. And like, how do we, in that sort of really networked age, think about community-led growth as a front door between your product and your brand and your users wherever they want to engage with you, whether that's through Bevy and meetups that are happening all over the world in real time, whether that's social platforms like Twitter and Reddit, or forums like Khoros or Vanilla or Discourse, or learning and certification platforms like SkillJar. I mean, these are all part of what we consider to be like the surface areas where your community engages.
Yeah, and it's such a good point on that too, because community-led growth is so much the evolution of inbound marketing. Being able to attract people, provide them value before they're ever engaging with your products or your services. It's a great, to your point, a front door, but also a way to get so much information and perspective from one another as you're looking to grow your business. And if you think about the flywheel model, attract, engage, delight, we often focus on delighting customers, having them be advocates, and community-led growth really kind of throws those doors open wider, which is how do you engage with folks who might not know your business yet, who might not know what you can offer, and provide them value and then be able to get them in that front door. Hubspot Academy is a great example of that for HubSpot. We educate so many people before they even touch our software, before they're even integrated into the HubSpot process, but they're able to see that value beforehand, have those validated skills in the market. And, as you mentioned, CLG was such a topic at Inbound, but it's going to continue to be a topic that we talk about, throughout this year and next year, of how we bring that together and how we make sure we can validate its effectiveness as well. Make sure that, yes, the connections are there, but what did those connections bring to the business? What did they provide to the growth, the revenue, the retention of your customers in the long run as well?
Nice, good definition. So now that we've defined it, what does the bigger picture, let's take a little bit of a deep dive into each of your worlds. What does that look like, the mechanics of community-led growth? What does it look like? So let's start off with kind of the programmatic side with Courtney.
Yeah, it's, we were talking a little bit about this over the last couple of days, which is there's a lot of different elements that go into community-led growth. There's a lot of pillars, if you want to think about it in that way. Academies and online learning programs can be one strong pillar of community-led growth. And so if we take that a little bit deeper, being able to provide consistent educational content out in the market is a great way to get a community to grow as well as to form one. A great example early on in the HubSpot days was inbound.org. It was a free platform, a forum where folks that were learning about inbound marketing talked to each other. Wasn't connected to HubSpot, but that's where a lot of the initial ideas for the inbound certification that HubSpot Academy originally launched came from. It was learning from other folks about how you can continue to grow with inbound, what inbound was, how you attract, engage, delight. And so when you think about the pillar of education when it comes to community-led growth, it's really thinking about what are the core objectives and things that you want your learners to be able to achieve, whether or not it's tied to your products or services. And so thinking about some of that backwards planning, that learning design of, if I really want people to understand and implement inbound marketing, how do I get them there? Maybe it's a course, a certification, a lesson, or it can be live content, workshops, getting them to engage in a variety of different types of educational content to start to spin that community-led growth flywheel. Some really interesting things that come out of that pillar also is how it can bleed into a lot of the other things that you're doing. So education can be repurposed in so many different ways, which is why it can be a great driver for community-led growth. You can take some of that certification course content, put it into blog posts, put it on YouTube, really think about the different ways that it can multiply and repurpose, and then that can create the foundation for a lot of the other CLG initiatives you're working on. With that too, education is such a strong attraction tool as well as retention. So when you think about leads coming into your business, signups, if they're coming through that education, they're getting that value, supporting your sales team in some of those close rates, and also leaning into that retention as well. Folks that are consuming and engaging with that educational content are retaining at a higher rate. So they're able to then reproduce back into the market and again, start to spin that CLG flywheel. But that's only one pillar of community-led growth. It's being able to look at that education. I know there's a lot of different pillars that you look at as well from the broad perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you're talking about the ways in which HubSpot Academy thinks about KPIs and how the education program, to your point, is driving more healthy customer conversions, healthier customers, more product usage. I think for every community leader out there, in the past, it's been tough to tie a lot of the impact of the programs back to the business. And one of the things that we do at CommonRoom is we do build a analytics platform that integrates across all of these various surface areas, whether it's an education program or your engagements on social or forums or things like Bevy, which we integrate with as well. And we bring all of that together into a true community 360. And because we're able to finally do this with advancements in technology, community leaders can finally shine a light into what's going on across all their various programs or narrow down a specific program and really tie it back to outcomes. Wow. So even as Courtney talks about HubSpot Academy, I'm just thinking through all the different surface areas, even within the education pillar, right? You're talking about workshops, you're talking about webinars, you're talking about content, and that's a lot of data. That's a lot of engagement between your community and your programs and your content and your events that need to be aggregated together in order for you to truly lead your program, right? You want the analytics, you want the data, you want to understand the impact so that you can know what the levers are and you can affect it. So one of the things that we've really done is applied this kind of ROI-based lens to many of our incredible customers, one of which is HubSpot. So I want to share a couple of super compelling and exciting stats. And if these are the types of stats that you want to ultimately gain for your business, I really encourage you to think about leveraging an intelligent community growth platform. So Courtney touched on a lot of this, but the first one is community leads to new business. Yep. When Courtney refers to the fact that HubSpot Academy is driving new users, we see that at massive scale, and it's incredibly impactful. So one of our hyper-growth customers, they found that 10% of their new revenue from 2021, that's tens of millions of dollars in customer revenue, originated with a community surface area. So whether it was through education or through a community social program or a meetup or an event or a forum, 10% of their total aggregate net new customers originated with a community touch point before it was ever seen as a sales or marketing qualified lead in their CRM. So these various surface areas where you're engaging with your community are truly some of the most impactful front doors between your users, how they discover your solution, how they adopt it, and then your business. The second key stat that's super compelling, and you talked about this as well, is that community engagement accelerates business. So one of our other customers found that with a community engaged deal, so that's a prospect or a deal where they've gone through an education program, or they're engaging in the forums, or they're asking questions on social. Well, those deals, 70% of them close within 90 days, compared to 40% of sales or marketing, traditional sales or marketing qualified customers. That's a huge lift, right? And then finally, things like education, when we talk about the ability for a product champion to spread their knowledge not only across the broader community, but also internally as an advocate and educator at their company, right? I'm thinking HubSpot administrators who are so passionate about HubSpot and really spreading that knowledge within an organization. We have that person at CommonRoom. They know HubSpot. They're an SME. They're doing demos for everybody else. They're really spreading that activation and adoption. Well, that leads to more feature adoption and healthier customers and ultimately more retention. I think we all know this conceptually, but we were able to put numbers to it. And again, it's incredibly compelling. One of our customers is a publicly traded, very well-known company with a passionate set of practitioners. And what they found was that if one of their practitioners engaged in a community event last year, they saw 2x more feature adoption across the board for these individuals. And then the impact of these individuals at their respective companies is that if there is an ambassador at a specific organization, that organization had 3x more monthly revenue spend with the company. Like, these are incredibly impactful statistics about the sort of the impact of community programs on the business. And I think we're really in the beginning phases of really starting to be able to measure that. And I mean, when we talk about securing internal buy-in for programs or budgets or resources, right? We talk about how community teams oftentimes don't have the budget they should. Well, I think it really starts with being able to have these solid, firm, it's not fuzzy, it's real ROI.
And that's where it can be a multiplier. You take some of these and then you're stacking on all these other things you're doing, and that's where a lot of those community-led growth initiatives, that ROI you're talking about, can be the epicenter, really the core source of a lot of that retention as well as driving new leads. I mean, HubSpot sees that if one certification is active in a HubSpot portal, we see over a 10% jump in their customer dollar retention. That's one certification. If they're also engaging in the HubSpot community, if they're going to webinars, if they come to Inbound, all of that starts to amplify. And so when you start to bring those things together and stitch them together, it can be a huge uplift for any organization. And to your point, being able to look at some of those data points, that's where the resources come from. Being able to do the go-to-market approach as well, being able to get that communication out there that these communities, this education, these initiatives are available.
Yeah, I mean, an incredible sort of, I guess, example of how you can tie a community program like education or an ambassador program to kind of that more traditional go-to-market side with marketing and CS and sales. Like, one of our customers, they asked us the question, how many of our tier 1, like highest spend customers have an ambassador or a certification at that account? And we had to kind of go and answer that question for the very first time for them. And they're actually a very sort of mature, 10 years old community program at a really incredible community first organization. Yeah. And so I'd love to hear more about, how you guys think about KPIs, because I'm really starting to see that a lot of incredible community-led organizations are still very early in thinking through some of those questions and getting the answers.
Yeah, it's interesting because you can think about it in a few different ways, and I think that's actually where we get tripped up, which is, do I want to think about it in the way I traditionally think about my KPIs, or do I need to kind of bring a new framework and a new model? The way that HubSpot Academy thinks about it is we really go back to basics with it, thinking about the flywheel, attract, engage, delight of the inbound methodology of, all right, so what are we trying to do from a marketing perspective? All right, we're trying to attract people to the business. We look at signups and we look at leads. We look at how many different touch points someone had before they engaged with Academy versus Academy being the first touch point they ever had with HubSpot. And we use both of those metrics to really help showcase to the marketing and sales team of, look at all the folks where HubSpot Academy was the first time they ever engaged with HubSpot. And then those folks, we sort of follow them through that deal creation stage. Our sales reps, I will say off the cuff, love it. If someone already has a certification, it makes their job a whole lot easier. Oh, what did you learn recently in the email marketing certification? Great, let me build on that and let's talk about these other things versus starting from scratch, which, while not a core KPI, it's a great qualitative metric to talk about internally, to your point, that internal momentum. And then looking at deals closed with folks who have engagement and certifications, really on that engaged stage. And then the two most important things we look at from a KPI standpoint from a delight customer perspective, customer dollar retention and revenue retention. Folks that are engaging consistently in Academy as well as our community platform, being able to have that higher retention across the board month over month.
Yeah, and it's amazing to hear from leaders like you who are more mature in how they're thinking about it. I challenge and welcome everyone here to really think about how your community programs can be measured across things like business ROI, right? Net new revenue, retention, expansion. And of course, if you're like, how do I do that? Please visit our booth because that is exactly what CommonRoom was built to do. I think the other thing that is so interesting about what you mentioned and was a big theme at Inbound again is context, right? Yeah. So one of the most incredible things about community is the connectedness of the people. It's the context around, you know exactly what certification program they recently passed. You know what they're interested in from a feature or adoption perspective. And so how can you feed that into your marketing automation systems or into your CRMs to the extent where your sales reps or your emails are much more relevant and highly tailored and contextual, which is a big theme as well. I think there's an incredible amount of new data out there that today, honestly, isn't tied into a company's kind of go-to-market approach. And so how can we really leverage community and the insights we're getting from our community members on what they care about, how they're using the product, the challenges that they're having, in order to create more customized and contextual and helpful customer experiences. And I think it really starts with the community team, again, right? The community leaders, the ability of, a leader like Courtney saying, hey, here's the universe of different types of certifications. Okay, go-to-market team, how can we really tie all of that data intelligence back into how we send out emails or how we have our sales reps reach out?
Yeah, and that's, something that, we've been talking about too, even that integration with HubSpot and CommonRoom to be able to bring all of that CRM data together with the different touch points is what becomes really valuable in being able to experience what your learners are experiencing so you can better provide that context and, close deals faster, continue to retain customers, all the things that, we're here to do day to day. But also, it's a great feedback loop. Being able to understand what gaps exist in the community, what folks want to learn, so that you can build services, build products that really serve those different models, something that we lean into quite heavily at HubSpot, which is asking the community what they want. Being able to, what's a new certification you want to take? What's a boot camp you want to experience to really drive also the, not only community-led growth in that sense, but the community sort of leaders being able to shape what they're experiencing.
Yeah, that's really like a build better together, grow better together.
Oh, grow better. You got it in there. Thank you. Telling her backstage, I was like, HubSpot's all about grow better. How can we sneak that in somewhere?
Yeah. And I think it's just also this theme that as the community leader, as a leader of a community program, like you shouldn't be siloed from the rest of go-to-market. Like you are a go-to-market leader. You're engaging with customers and users in the most high intent and valuable and impactful ways every day. And so like think about how, as a function, you shouldn't be siloed. As a data connectedness, you shouldn't be siloed. And it's going to be better for kind of the customer experience that your community's getting from your brand.
Definitely.
Well, they just took the conversation away. I loved it. I was just sitting here, furniture. No. But before we end, what are some elements we haven't already covered? You already went into some of it. The future of community-led growth, areas that we aren't yet in, but you're like, oh, we need to go there. This is going to be really important.
I think we've just started scratching the surface of how impactful and how evolutionary community-led growth will be for businesses of all sizes and all types. It's really the frontier of value-led growth, this notion that to start a customer relationship or a customer conversation, you want to offer something of value first, right? And to Courtney's point, thinking about the kind of sales-led traditional 20 years ago past where you're really dialing for dollars, to things like marketing-led growth with the invention of inbound marketing and HubSpot, to then sort of product-led growth, which we've heard about as that ability to see and code what sort of actions your users are taking in your product. Well, community-led growth is kind of the aggregation of all of that and is really the next iteration of how companies will go to market. And I'm excited to be here and part of a community that's really figuring it out, both from like a technology platform perspective, which is what we focus on, but also from a programs perspective. I think, it's a really exciting time and we should all share our stories and our learnings and kind of create this future together.
Yeah, and I don't think there's much I can add to that. You really painted the picture there really well, which is we are just at the start, which is what we should all be excited about. There's so much opportunity for each of us to also be creative in this space and shape it the way we want our own community to look like, why we're here connecting and engaging with one another. And we talk a lot about today the amount of information that's out there, this age of disconnection, and being able to strive forward, not just from having a connected platform, being able to use tools that bring those things together, but also having a connected community, bringing together your network with the discussions that you're having and the education that you're leaning into to really shape this future world where not only do we have the information we need to be successful, but we're also sharing that information with others and really helping all of us build better together.
All right, and if we want to keep up with you and keep learning from you, I think we can visit CommonRoom, who's here, but how can we keep up with you online, newsletters, Instagram, socials?
Follow me on Twitter. It's Linda M. Lian, or you can follow CommonRoom at CommonRoom HQ. You can also check out CommonRoom at the booth. Go to our website, commonroom.io, and get started for free today. It just takes a couple clicks, and you'll get community intelligence within a matter of hours.
Awesome. Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, Courtney Sembler, but also connect with Hubspot Academy. So academy@hubspot.com. Feel free to reach out to us, but also check out our website as well as check out our community as well. We've got some HubSpotters here, both in person as well as digitally. So feel free to connect with any of them on any topics. Happy to share insights as well.
And let's just give it up, a real warm CMX appreciation for these people.